Hey everyone, welcome to Sacred Laughter Podcast. I am your host, Chris Damron. Sit back, grab a cup of coffee or your favorite drink, and enjoy this week's episode. Welcome back to Sacred Laughter Podcast. In today's episode, I'll be sharing personal stories and experiences from my childhood growing up in central Utah that have profoundly shaped who I am today. As I look back to my childhood, and moving from California to Utah was a shock. We didn't think that we were ever going to move because we had a great connection with friends there, and we were starting to get involved into sports and different activities. But when my parents came out to us and told us that we were moving, I was devastated. I wanted to stay with my friends. I wanted to stay in the sports programs that I was a part of, as well as excited to start the next year of school because we were going to move right before the next school year started. As the time got closer and closer, my parents continued to talk to us about all the adventures that we were going to have, living in central Utah and spending the time with family and friends there in Utah. And the devastation became, to an excitement. We were extremely excited to start the new journey and path that God presented to us. So as we started driving towards Utah, the excitement got more and more, but it's a long trip. And when there is a long trip, you start thinking about how much change there's going to be and how much effect that's potentially going to be on you. At nine, I think I was 9 or 10 years old. You don't really think about those things, but as you get older, those are things that you continue to think about. And even now as a parent, I still think about those things as I have moved multiple times from different locations, being active duty military and having to shift my children to different schools and different places, from overseas and back to the United States. So knowing, the challenges I faced growing up, I shared that knowledge with my kids and looking, at the joy of how change can be a benefit for everyone. So as we moved to central Utah, I started reflecting on all the fun times I had with my grandparents and my cousins when we would go visit them in the summer. We would go hiking, camping, fishing, and spend a lot of time just in the mountains. So knowing that was potentially going to be my full-time opportunity to be in the woods with them was super exciting because that's one thing I've always enjoyed is just being in the woods. So as we moved to Utah, we lived with my grandparents for a little bit before we moved into a different house. But, I cherished the moments, living with my grandparents. My grandpa was a phenomenal mentor for me and is such a strong person. And I'll share some of the stories next episode about him. But as, we got a little bit older and, we moved into our new house, we started losing a lot of the fun times with them because we were no longer living with them. But just knowing that being in, Utah and you're having the opportunity to go camping on the weekends, go for rides in the mountains, fishing, hunting during hunting season, that's when the family really came together. So in my younger years, we spent a lot of time in the woods. We spent a lot of times just hunting and camping, around the area. And if none of you guys have ever been to Utah or some of you guys know of Zion's National Park or Capitol Reef, that was kind of my backyard. So I was able to cherish the moment and bask in the beauty, that God created for us to enjoy. So with that, it really resonates with me today that all the fun times I had as a kid, I could go on with so many stories of spending time up in the mountains, spending time, along hiking trails, as well as just riding my bike around the town, just seeing what's out there and what it has to offer. The town I grew up in was surrounded by fields of hay, wheat, barley, corn, and sometimes we would spend our summer evenings or even the fall evenings just out in the fields helping farmers with their crop or even just out there playing around, seeing if we could get stuck in a corn maze or build our own corn maze, see if we can get lost in the haystacks, and we would build forts in the haystacks. So I remember this one time, a bunch of my friends and I, we went to this farm, this dairy farm that was nearby, And we built this massive, massive fort where we were pulling hay barrels out. And I think it was we made it into like a 3 or 4 bedroom fort. And one afternoon we were over there playing, and we used to go run across the top of the haystacks. And as we're running, we're running, from each other, playing tag up on top. And one of my friends fell down through this little area that we created, which we called the chimney stack. And it was probably 8 to 10 bells high, so maybe 20 feet off the ground. And he fell straight through and ending up breaking his arm. So we had to, ride our bikes over to the house, tell his parents that, he broke his arm when he was out playing in the haystacks, and that became a huge deal. So his dad, called our parents and told them that, hey, I don't mind if you guys want to come play in the field or play in the haystacks, but don't run across the top of them. And if you're going to play in the haystacks, don't create a fort, because it is actually going to be super inconvenient for them as they were pulling the tractor around and loading up a bunch of those bales of hay to sell, because it was going to be super dangerous for him. Another story was we would used to go around areas of town where they were building new houses, and we used to go around and look at the floor plan and pretend it was our house and design the area that we thought was going to be where we lived. And each of us would pick our own bedrooms and, just have like our own little fort while we were in there as well, until one of the owners or contractors came by and saw us that we were down there and chewed us out and yelled at us, and we left and we never went back. But being in a small farm town like that, like, we all knew each other and everyone knew who we were. And again, they would just call our parents and they would tell us that we were out playing, in the new construction area, and my mom and dad would get after us and tell us that we weren't, supposed to be in there. So we would get, in trouble a little bit, nothing too serious. But again, like I said, I could go on for hours telling stories like that. And that right there is what really, shaped who I am today, and just being part of a community and an area where you can live life to the fullest and enjoy, everything that's out there, as well as, just bask in God's glory and his nature that he created for us. As I got older and moved up into high school and got my driver's license, there was, I think, 7 or 8 small towns that surrounded my town where I lived in. And we'd all drive there, meet up with friends, and just have our small little picnics, or go to like local little ponds or creeks and just fish, or even go for, what I guess you can say, go tubing down the canal, where someone would drop us off and then take their truck all the way down at the other end and drive them back. So we had a vehicle at the start point, a vehicle at the end point, and we would just hop in tubes and just float the canal. We did that so many times during the summer just because it was so hot and it was nice and cool and refreshing. But with the surrounding towns, we would all kind of just get together, pick a spot for the weekend, and go there and just hang out and just enjoy each other's company. And sometimes it was 20 minutes away, 30 minutes away, but we always found a way to connect with people and build that friendship and bond with their families. But with that friendship and bond, there were sometimes tragedies. As you got to know someone very well and their families, in many cases, some of their grandparents, would pass. And so we would go into a mourning with them and just be with them, as they went through this hard time, and support them. In a lot of cases, that's where the community came together closer. We were very tight-knit individuals in a tight-knit community, and you would feel the bond of the hardship that everyone suffered through. But at the end, we all came together and supported each other through the hardship. And the center of all this was Christ and Jesus. We continue to praise him and thank him for everything he did in our lives, as well for the community. And we would seek the glory of those people that we lost, and how they impacted not just their family, but the community as well. As we all know, the community plays a huge part in a very small town. In a lot of cases, individuals would come up and request support or help in their farm, or with dinners for loved ones that were lost. But one thing that was always fun to see is how the community came together as well to support other people. There were many farmers that would post flyers or ask help on their farm. And that was, feeding cattle, pigs, or even baling and bucking hay. And I remember there was multiple times in high school that our football coach or my dad would get a bunch of us together and take us out to a neighboring farm, and we would sit out there for hours and just bale as many bales of hay that we can, and we would have competitions to see if the offensive line or the defensive line could bale the most hay for that day. And at the end of the day, we would all just head down to the local gas station, grab us a cold drink, and then we would meet at Albertson's parking lot and just talk and have fun and just kind of honk the horn, passing cars or friends. And that was one of the small town memories that I still have to this day. And I think my nephews are kind of doing it as well. So we used to call it Dragon Main. We weren't really dragging the road like drag racing, but we would start at one end of town, go all the way down Main Street to another end of town, flip a U-ey, and then go all the way back down the other end. And sometimes we would travel 10, 15 miles an hour. And if we had a group of cars that were, all of our friends, we would slow way down to like 5 miles an hour and, blast our music super loud and just kind of keep a very slow pace. And in many cases, it upset, pissed a lot of people off. But that was the norm. Yeah, at a certain hour, I think it was like 8 o'clock at night till about 10, we would all head down to Main Street and just come together as a bunch of kids and just have fun. It wasn't rowdy. We weren't drinking, we weren't doing drugs. It was just hanging out and just talking and enjoying life with each other. And that, in many cases, that's how we spent our time as friends. If we didn't see each other during the summer days, we knew that we would see each other that night as we were out on Main Street, just chatting, have a good time. And the local cops, they knew what we were doing. They would be out there. Sometimes they would stop by when we were in the parking lots and ask us how we were and, what we were doing that summer. And if we were excited for the next school year. And many of them followed us, through sports. So they would ask and talk to us how, we did last year and, what are some of our strengths or weaknesses, going into the new year that we may face, and some of the big schools surrounding us, that they may think may be a challenge for us, and just having, small talk and just enjoying, the summer nights and the summer evenings. I would take nothing away from growing up in a small town. It's unique. It was fun. We all enjoyed it. And as I said earlier, what shaped me today, into the person I am, as well as other experiences I have faced, as I grew up, now as a parent and a husband. As I continue to grow, I still look back to the things that I learned, as well as the things I did as a child, and I will always cherish those, and I'll always remember them, and I'll continue to share my story with anyone that is willing to listen and ask questions, about who I am and, where I come from, where I grew up. It's such a blessing and an honor that, we have stories that we're able to share with people. And in many cases, that's how we reunite and come closer with each other and closer with God, through, like I said earlier, the challenges that we have faced, and the unique thing is that when we look at our life, some of our life is paved already. God chose us to run and lead a certain life, and a lot of us are fulfilling it. And if you don't think that you're fulfilling your life yet, that's fine. That it will come in due process. The day will come where you are fulfilling the life to your fullest, and you're making yourself happy, your family happy, and at the end of the day, you're making God happy as well. The crazy thing is that there are so many things that we forget about, as we have grown up. And for me specifically, there's a lot of things that I do where I'm like, oh, I learned that when I was a kid, or I smell something and it takes me back to times of growing up or things I've done that is a memory that I don't cherish as much until in the moment. And it's so fascinating that we're able to see that and relive those thoughts and relive those cherished moments. We can't forget our cherished moments. We can't forget the things that God has placed before us. He has done it for a purpose, as I said earlier. And if we forget the purpose, and in many cases, we're going to forget him, and we can't. He is our Father. He put us here on earth for a reason. And for a lot of us, we don't really know what that reason is, and that's fine. Don't get upset. Don't get mad. Just live life to the fullest. Don't have any regrets, and don't look back and say, I wish I would have done this different, or I wish I would have done that different. Just continue to live life to the best capability and opportunity that you can. I'm so honored that I'm, able to share a little bit of my story with you guys. And it's humbling as I look back to know that there's so many things that I did as a kid that I continue to cherish today. And I know there's so many other things that I have not talked about that it still resonates deep down inside me. And I hope it's the same for you guys. As you look back at your childhood after hearing this, that you guys can put a smile on your face and maybe shed a tear every now and again, knowing that you lived a full, fun life. And you're going to continue to live a fun, full life as you continue on through this journey of life, and share it with people. Enjoy the moment, share with people, and just continue to bless our Father. I am so excited that you're going to continue to share this journey with us. So stay tuned for next week's episode.